Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, True Crime and Felines. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back and thank you for your support. I do appreciate it. For those of you new to the channel, my name is Brandy and every Friday I sit down with one or more of my 14 felines and we bring you a true crime case or mystery. As you can see, my filming location has changed just a little bit. We kind of rearranged the way our cat area was, which works better for filming for me, and you can see more of the felines in the background. So hopefully this works out. This week's case is about a parent abduction of a child due to a custody dispute. Now, many people believe that when a child is actually abducted by their parents instead of a stranger, that at least they're treated well, right? And they're taken care of. Well, not in all cases. There are times that when a parent abducts their own child, it's about hurting the other parent or getting back at them. And sometimes the child's well-being is not taken into consideration. This may or may not be the case with Penelope Inks, who we'll be talking about today. There is a lot of accusations flying back and forth between the parents, so I'm going to try to report this based on facts and through my research. Now, as I walk through this case, I am not siding with either parent in this. Through the research I've done, I feel in the end, both parents have failed this child. So let's get started. Heather Renee Perry was born August 12th in 1982. When she was 8 years old, her father would end up walking out on the family, and she really never saw him again. Her uncle Eddie kind of became her father figure and was there for her. Now, once Heather was an adult, she got into modeling. She did a lot of promotional modeling, like photographs for print, clothes. She also was at various auto events where she would be posing with a car and all that. Now, it was reported that she actually wanted to pose in Playboy, and she ended up taking some nude photographs and sending them into the magazine, but she never heard back. Though, for the record, she never posed nude professionally or in print, ever. Heather met Kevin Inks, who was 12 years her senior, and they married in late 2003. Heather found out she was pregnant weeks after the wedding. It was sort of a surprise. They would end up having their daughter Penelope in August of 2004. The family lived in Florida for a time where Heather would supplement her modeling career teaching a mom and toddler yoga class. And then after about a year or so, they ended up settling in Texas. Now, it seemed like the picture-perfect marriage, but that didn't last long. Their marriage would turn very tumultuous and became a nightmare for both of them. Heather accused Kevin of abusing herself and their daughter Penelope. She stated that Kevin once picked her up by the neck, held a knife to her, and did this all in front of their young daughter. Now, Kevin admitted that he had anger issues and that Heather kind of drove him crazy. And he made a statement that if his wife wasn't so attractive, he would have left a long time ago. He also stated that he never manhandled her to hurt her. He just did it to intimidate her, to get her to leave him alone. Because apparently she constantly got in his face and would keep pushing the argument. Now, all things apparently came to a head, and in 2008, they both went on the Dr. Phil show in an attempt to save their marriage. Now, the show would end up putting cameras in their house to catch their family situation and outrageous fights. Kevin is caught on video calling Heather pretty much every name in the book. On Heather's end, the camera showed her constantly getting into Kevin's face and not letting him remove himself from the situation. So if he went into another room, she would follow and continue arguing. The cameras also caught that every time they fought, Heather seemed to be holding Penelope on her hip constantly in the middle of these fights. Dr. Phil points out that she seems to be bringing this child into battle with her and not letting the child go into another room or not witness what's going on. Whether you like Dr. Phil or not, you have to admit he's blunt. So he calls Heather out on inserting her daughter into these potentially violent situations. Heather makes an excuse saying that Penelope is always with her because Penelope is always worried about her mother or scared of her dad, Kevin. There are a number of things that Dr. Phil points out that both Kevin and Heather are doing wrong, and Heather seems to always have an excuse, which of course Dr. Phil calls her out on that as well. So Kevin eventually unplugged the cameras and didn't let it run its full course. And when Dr. Phil asked him why he did that, Kevin stated that their fights were worse than normal because he felt Heather was provoking him to fight and trying to make him look like the bad guy in this situation. Now, Heather did admit to contributing to this family dynamic, this drama, and not letting Kevin walk away. Now, Kevin did insist that he had turned to the Bible and that his behavior was getting better due to that, and pointed out that Heather was the one that needed the help. Now, if you watch the show or even read through the transcripts, it's pretty apparent that these two individuals need to separate and never see each other ever again and just go their separate ways. But unfortunately, Penelope is in the middle of this situation and creates a big complication of them just hitting the road and going their separate ways. At the end of the show, both Kevin and Heather agree that they are going to get help at Dr. Phil's pressing. So basically what we see is that Penelope is being used as a pawn in these games between Kevin and Heather and their very toxic relationship. 4 years after that appearance on Dr. Phil, Kevin and Heather finally got divorced in 2012. And by 2013, they had both taken out mutual restraining orders on each other. So why did they take out mutual restraining orders on each other? Because there was a custody battle over Penelope. Each one was accusing the other one of being a bad parent. Now, initially, Heather was given custody of Penelope, but it was court ordered that Penelope go 2 visits with her father as well on certain times of the week or month, whatever it was. Kevin would accuse Heather of not allowing Penelope to come for these visits, and basically she was keeping Penelope away from him. Heather stated Kevin wasn't paying child support, and she did not want Penelope to be alone with Kevin due to the violent past of their marriage. Kevin said he never laid a hand on Penelope ever. In January 2014, allegedly, Heather took off with Penelope and sort of disappeared. Now, a couple days later, they did show back up. Everybody was safe and sound. Kevin would end up taking Heather back to court for custody. And this is what the court paper said, is that Heather had a history of, or a pattern, had a history or pattern of violating the court orders put in place, and there was sufficient evidence that she may have planned to remove the child from the United States. So in October of 2014, there was a hearing for final custody, and Kevin was awarded custody by default. Now, the reason he was awarded that custody by default is because Heather did not show up to the hearing, because by then Heather and Penelope were gone. So Allegedly, sometime in the spring of 2014, Heather disappeared with Penelope, and Penelope would have been 11 years old at the time. After weeks of not knowing where his daughter was and was unable to get a hold of Heather, Kevin filed a missing persons report. The FBI got involved. It got really big, and Heather ended up being put on the most wanted list. They also stated that she could be armed and dangerous, as she could be carrying a weapon, and that she may be unstable and suicidal. Now, after Penelope's disappearance, Kevin would end up going to the condo where Heather was living, which she had, of course, long gone left by then, and he filmed the conditions of the home. And in the video, it shows clothes, and it was dirty, and there's just everything all over the floor, old food on the floor and everything, and there was mold growing in the refrigerator. There was also an eviction notice on the front door as well. So again, like I said, they were long gone by this time. So with everybody searching, the trail unfortunately went cold. In 2016, 2 years since Penelope's disappearance, Kevin put a video on YouTube pleading for his daughter to come home or reach out for some help.
Hello, Penelope. It's been a long time. I think about you every single day that goes by. I still live on the beach. I'm there quite frequently, walking the dog, and I see families together and fathers playing with their daughters, and I miss having that with you very much. I wonder how tall you are right now. I wonder if you're continuing to be a fantastic artist. This is one of the last pieces that you gave me. I pray for that every day, and I think that the time, it feels like it's going to be soon, but I don't want you to be afraid, because I don't blame you for anything, any of this, at all. The other thing I'm going to do is wrap my arms around you and tell you that I love you and I miss you. If we can create a life however we want together, because I'm going to be the father that you need and deserve. What I want you to do is not be afraid. If you have the opportunity to go to a neighbor's house, to a police officer, or to anyone, and call 911. Call the police, call the FBI, the marshal's office, or Philip Klein investigators, because they are looking for you and they will find you.
Kevin would also ended up hiring a private investigator to help with the search, but it would be 5 years until Penelope was found. So in April 2020, a call came into the police where a woman stated that she was in danger because her ex-husband was trying to poison her. When they asked the woman what her address was, she claimed she was at a motel, but she couldn't remember the name of the motel. So they ran a phone trace. It was a Days Inn motel in Texas. The police arrived at the motel and eventually found the woman that made the call. After talking to the woman, she gave an alias name, which was linked to a wanted fugitive, and the authorities were able to determine it was, in fact, Heather Inks. They also stated that she was not in danger of being poisoned and seemed to have made that all up. They took Heather into custody and searched the motel room. They found Penelope Inks, who was now 16 years old, hiding in a bathroom. The media would state that she was thin, malnourished, and only weighed 74 pounds, and stated that she had been surviving on Dr. Pepper and candy. This would later be disputed by Heather's supporters, which I will get into. They also stated that Penelope seemed traumatized, that she had been extremely emotionally abused. She had been kept out of school since her disappearance at age 11, and she was also very confused on who she should and should not trust. She was taken to a local hospital and put in the custody of Child Protective Services. Authorities stated before Heather and Penelope were found at this motel that they had no idea where she had been the last 5 years. So it's unknown of what all Penelope may have went through in that time. The private investigator that Kevin hired stated that Penelope had been brainwashed and she now had to go through deprogramming. What exactly she'd been brainwashed about, I don't know. Now, the front desk staff at the motel stated that Heather did check in with a man. They found that man, and he happened to be the boyfriend of Heather. He stated he had no idea what Heather's real name was. He only knew her by one of her aliases. He also stated he had no idea that she was the Heather Inks, the wanted fugitive. And it's unknown what role, if any, he played in Penelope's alleged trauma. In the end, it doesn't appear that he was charged with anything that I could find anyway, and he seems to be completely absent from any other media coverage. But you do have to wonder, was he really that naive that he didn't know who Heather and Penelope was? Or was he just trying to save his own skin? Regardless, it seems he skedaddled out of there right after this. So Heather was taken to jail and her bond was set at $300,000. However, because there was a federal hold on her, nobody could pay her bond. So she wouldn't be able to get out of jail even if she had the money or somebody paid it for her. Heather was eventually moved to Galveston County, Texas prison, but it does appear that recently she had been moved to another prison due to COVID-19, and I couldn't find exactly where that was. But basically, she's locked up, still awaiting her trial. Officially, Heather has been charged with interference of child custody, which only has a maximum of a 2-year sentence if she's found guilty. She's also being charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Now, any child abuse or neglect charges, I haven't been able to find that they put on her yet, or if they will. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're still assessing Penelope and the charges might come later, or if Penelope being malnourished and traumatized was exaggerated. But here's where it gets interesting. So apparently Heather has a second daughter, a younger daughter than Penelope, and apparently the father was the boyfriend that she was found at the motel with. There's not a lot of information that I could find on the child, but the child appears to be in custody of someone who's not letting the child speak to Heather. So there's another battle going on there. Heather has requested that this child go with her Uncle Eddie, her father figure that took over after her dad walked out, but that's not happening for some reason. Now, Uncle Eddie does not live in Texas. I think he lives a couple states away, so that might be part of the problem as well. Now, Penelope, who is probably 17 by now, is still in custody of Child Protective Services. The custody has not been given to Kevin at this point. Penelope is staying in a children's facility, and her father is allowed to have supervised visits with her. Now, Kevin did remarry in 2017 to a woman named Nicole. That same year, Nicole filed charges on Kevin for assaulting her. The charges were ultimately dismissed, however. It seems as that Nicole and Kevin are still together and they do have a child together as well. There is a Facebook page out there as well that is called Freedom for Heather and Penelope Inks, and it was created in September of 2020. Apparently, a friend of Heather's started the page to clear up any misinformation that is being put out in the media, allegedly by Kevin's private investigation firm that he hired. In this Facebook page, there are lots of posts stating Heather ran off with Penelope because she was trying to protect her daughter from a violent man. The person running the page says that Penelope was not starving when she was found in the motel, that she's actually 5'8" and was 115 pounds, which is still a little thin, but the friend states that Penelope has her mother's figure, which is a naturally skinny model-esque body, but that she was not in the state that the media keeps reporting they found her in. There are other links to stories that are similar to Heather and Penelope's situation. There's one link to a story where it states that these children were forced to rebond with their father and taken from a very loving mother, and it didn't end well. So there are stories like that and how the laws need to change. There's also a very interesting post on there that Heather had a third daughter, actually before Penelope, it looks like. I really don't know the whole story around this, but it appears that when she had the child, either something happened or maybe it was just from the time the child was born, it had to go on life support. This is not Kevin's biological child, so I don't know if she was pregnant when Kevin and her met or if she just had the child when Kevin and her met. I'm not sure. But the child's on life support. And apparently the story, as the post says, is that while Heather was sleeping, Kevin went ahead and signed off to have the child taken off life support, which eventually led to their death in April of 2003. The child was then cremated and their ashes put into an urn, and the child's name was Julia. Now, while Heather and Penelope was on the run, this private investigation firm that Kevin hired had made a Facebook post and showed a picture of the urn and the ashes of this Julia, and stated that Heather needed to turn herself in because Julia would rather be with Heather and not sitting on the private investigator's desk. I know what they were attempting with this post, but I do feel, in my opinion, it was in very bad taste. First of all, what is the private investigator doing with Heather's daughter's ashes? That just doesn't make any sense. Even if he got them from Kevin, that just is bad. It's just bad all the way around. It's my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's fine. But honestly, I just don't feel that that was in good taste at all. I'm not the only one who felt that way. Apparently, the Facebook page got a lot of outrage, and the private investigation firm ended up deleting it off their page. This Facebook page supporting Heather also has a couple videos of Kevin complaining about his visits with Penelope. They have to be supervised, and he doesn't believe that should be the way it is. And there's also a video on there where Kevin allegedly is storming off of a supervised visit because Penelope was at a park and was playing with other kids instead of paying attention to him. That's what the post says. Anyway, you go to that page and you can read all that, and then you can make your own opinion on what the hell is going on in this case. So, because obviously there is a lot of information that we do not know yet. It may come out in the trial, it may not. We'll just have to wait and see. I'll do an update video when and if the trial ever takes place. But in the end, my thoughts are with Penelope. I hope that what she went through, she's not too damaged to move ahead and have a good, happy life. So what are your thoughts on this case? It is very difficult when a child is put in the middle of two people that just do not get along and have a very toxic relationship. Also, please, 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 if you are in a relationship like this, toxic, unhappy, violent, abusive, please reach out, get help. There are resources. Make a plan and get out. Everyone deserves to live a happy life, not one of misery, suffering, or fear. I would love to read what you think in the comments down below. Please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll be back next Friday with another true crime case or mystery. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Bye.